Hey there. Today I'm going to talk to you about negative loops and challenging behaviors and how our families can get stuck in those challenges.
Hi, welcome to the Parenting Bridge podcast. I'm Dr. Michelle Alden, a licensed professional counselor, parent coach, and family therapist. And I'm here to help you to build a bridge to your best family possible.
Before I go into that, I want to remind you that our parent coaching is called the Playroom. And so you're going to want to join us in that Playroom where you can get some coaching and also listen to other people's struggles or situations and get coaching, that way as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So in dealing with power struggles, I want to give you 3 tips to stay engaged with your kids and avoid becoming enraged in what's happening in the home. So the first thing that I want to remind you about is that you want to create, I call it creating a fence. And I like to think about it being a nice white picket fence that you're going to put around your family and around all of the common situations that happen. But it may not feel like that to you. It may feel like, no, like we need a full, prison type fence with barbed wire across the top in order to keep these kids in line. Or you may feel like a fence is never gonna work. I have to keep my kids on a really tight leash, or I let them go and then I'm always having to kind of jerk them back to what is right. And I want to avoid that, because it's in that kind of feeling that where we feel like we have to hold on really tight that we get into these power struggles with our kids, and we just kind of keep this negative loop going. So creating a fence is about not reacting, but rather thinking about ways that you can respond. And I encourage you to think about that, how you're going to come around some of the common issues. So usually when I'm working with parents in the home or working with them through coaching, parents will tell me this is what always happens, or they always do this, or and the kids kind of like this negative loop because they are used to doing their thing, and then they are expecting you to do your thing, which is to react to whatever they're doing. And they are kind of pushing your buttons. They may be doing it consciously, they may not be. They may just, that's just the way it works in your family. And so creating a fence is coming around that rather than just reacting. And you're going to have to think about your situations and how best you can come around those situations and create it to go differently. And that takes some thought and some practice, and it takes some work. And so if you need some coaching around that, feel free to, first of all, you respond to this video or podcast, however you're getting this information, in comments, or you can go online and look at our parenting website. It's parentingchallengingkids.com, and get a hold of us, and we can give you some help. So, but for now, I want you to just consider how you can kind of create a fence, how you can come around this. If your kids always have some problems at bedtime, if they always have problems around mealtime, how can you come around that so that it's not just reacting? It's not just, oh, you don't want that, or you don't want to do that, so now you're changing things to try to accommodate that child, or you're getting into a power struggle with them. The second tip is really about letting go, and it really kind of fits with that, the same thing with the idea of creating a fence, but it's letting go of a lot of the minor irritations that are really getting to you. And you may need some help with that as well, because I find that some parents are letting go of some things that really are causing some issues and building on other issues, and I always encourage that kids give a good response, or that we use good manners and those kind of things. And those may feel like minor things when you're dealing with kids that are explosive and blowing up. And so you may need a little bit of help of understanding why we do require, something like a kid being able to say, yes, mom, in a response when we have all these bigger things happening. But what I found is that with a lot of parents, they get into this struggle, and a power struggle is really about when you start feeling like, now I'm going to make you do this, or I want to make, I want you to be respectful, or, whatever it is where you're kind of digging your heels in. You're probably in a power struggle with your kids when it comes about, when you're trying to figure out a way to force them or to make them do something. That's not going to work. That's where you're going to really need to kind of create that fence, but you're also going to have to let go of some things. And so what I find is that parents get started on something, like maybe they asked for the child to say, yes, mom, give a good response, and the child does it, but then they, say it snotty, or they roll their eyes or whatever, and now the parent's like on that track, hey, you come back here and you say it the right way, and then the child's like, putting up more resistance, and now we're, and then finally the child explodes and, cusses the parent out, or, stomps away. These are the kind of kids I work with anyway. Maybe your child isn't like that, but, and really, we had the response, we had the thing that we needed to get the momentum to go into the next thing. So sometimes we have to kind of let go of some of those smaller things, but also letting go is knowing that you're in a power struggle, and being able to let go of the rope. So I always look at a power struggle like it's a tug of war, and you're not gonna win, because even if you are by force, or just because you're the parent or whatever, you're able to gain control and pull the child over to your side, you grab them, you make them come stand by you, or whatever it is, you really have lost, because they haven't had that change in their brain where they gave the response and then move forward to do it. So sometimes you have to just let go of the rope and then come around it a different way. So it's like realizing that, okay, this is, I've had times with kids where I've had to tell myself, like, okay, stop talking. Like, everything that they're throwing out there is to engage you in an argument and to really push your buttons. It's not coming from a thinking part of their brain. And so letting go of that and then saying, okay, I understand why you feel that way. Now we're going to go do this, and moving them to a different, a different thing that we're going to do, or a different, a change, or being able to let go and say, you know what, I don't have any more answers about that. And now I'm going to have to come back to you on that. I see a lot of parents that just let go because they're like, they can't handle it anymore. They are frustrated, and that's a different kind of letting go than that kind of letting go of the struggle, but then coming back around to support the child. Because if you think about it being a tug of war, if both people are really tugging and one person lets go of the rope, that other person has that potential to kind of fall, but we don't really want that. We want to come around and then kind of guide the child to where we want to go. So, and that takes some practice and some help. So, you have to kind of play with that idea, and how to do that, how to let go of those minor issues, and how to deal with those power struggles. I've also found that part of letting go is usually talking less. I find that when we get in a power struggle, we may not realize it because we're making such a good argument for, why, and, building up the whole reasoning and the moral reasons and, all of these things. And your child is maybe they're the one that now is let go of the rope, and you're just kind of free falling into your own, words and stuff, and they've shut down. So talking less, coming around, and thinking about what's the one thing that I want them to know now. And that leads into the third tip, which is to be concise and clear, and use your, it's like use words in a positive way. Instead of don't do that, stop pulling, stop doing this, stop doing that, coming around it and saying, here's what we're going to do, let's go do this, and being really clear about it. Right now, I want you to sit on the couch, right? Or we've been using, like, when kids sit, hit or are aggressive, we'll say, if you hit, you sit, and then we do, and in the way I teach, a timeout is not a timeout at all. I have a parent sit with the child or be close by, and the child takes a break. So it's being really, but we're really clear and concise. We're not barking orders. We can still be polite, but it doesn't have to be a question. Do you want to do this? Do you think this would help? It's just knowing that you've kind of let go of this power struggle, and now you're catching them by saying, all right, so here's what we're going to go do. And I always try to think of it as kind of, how do we get them to move into the next thing? Because when we're in a power struggle, we're stuck. And we're really, they're stuck, they're digging their heels in. We want to dig our heels in. And so how we can, let go of that and come around and then move them with clear and concise words into the next thing. And sometimes it does involve just waiting and having to wait it out. And that can be really hard, especially if you've been in this power struggle, because you're tense and wanting to make something happen. But think about, like, how can I give this child room to come back around now? And the older your child is, the more they will need that. Depending too, like how much of themselves they put in it. I work with a lot of kids that are, 11 and older, and by that time they have this sense of, like, they don't want to lose either, and they don't want to lose face. So we want to give them that opportunity to kind of get their stuff together and to come join us without then making them feel embarrassed or ashamed. Because when especially kids that get dysregulated easily, when they don't feel the feeling of necessarily embarrassment or regret or things like that. Instead, they just are angry, right? So now they're doing it, but they have to keep that anger guard up, because that's really vulnerable to admit that maybe you were being silly, or that you had a bad attitude or whatever. So I don't ask parents to work on the attitude piece of it until we get some of those bigger movements and get that fence created and kind of get some of those basic routines. And then, you'll kind of see opportunities to say something like, you need to be more kind, or try that again. But you got to not be stuck in those power struggles, because it's the hardest thing. I don't know if you've ever been in an argument or really been trying to hold your ground about something, even when you might have a thought in the back of your mind, like, I'm being really silly about this. It's the hardest thing to kind of take a step back and be able to say, like, okay, you might be right, or let me go do this. So you need somebody to kind of help you to guide into the next thing and to let that just be okay. So those are just some tips to really help. And then I just want to encourage you that in all of the things that you're doing, especially when you have had a lot of, like, contention and these challenging behaviors and negative loops and all of that kind of stuff, is that you may have kind of lost some of the fun of being a family. So if you have listened to any of my videos, I'm really big on creating a schedule, and I'm going to talk about that in other videos for sure. But just look for ways that in creating that fence, it's like you are able to have more playfulness and be able to enjoy each other, like, and I think that's another way to kind of just get out of those negative loops, is when you can see that this is just where your child is stuck right now, and look for playful ways to kind of move out of that, and look for ways to have in your schedule a lot of things that bring you together as a family, rather than things that are going to be divisive and pull you apart. So if you want more help, if you want some individual counseling, please go to our website, parentingchallengingkids.com, and look at our coaching options that we have, and join us in the playroom. I think that you're gonna love it, because you get to meet other parents that have similar challenges and talk through those things, and it's just a great opportunity to work through all of these kind of issues and to get some more help on the how do I do this of parenting.
Thanks for listening to The Parenting Bridge. Do you want to learn more about building a bridge to better behaviors? Pick up a copy of Dr. Michelle Alden's new book, Parenting Emotionally Distressed Kids. Or, for more resources, you can click on the link for Healthy Foundations. If you would like to leave a comment or a question for Dr. Alden, there's a link in the notes. We'll see you next time, and remember, things can always get better.